on Sports! All right. It's a joyful Bitter Men on Sports this week. You know, I'm here tonight with Gary, Rosanna Danikin, Chris, Father Guido Sarducci Fletcher, and myself, David Leonard Pinth Garnell. How are you gentlemen doing tonight?
All right. How are you doing?
Oh, couldn't be better. Couldn't be better. I was in Erie, which is a joyful time, of course, watching the thoroughbred ponies. Only the second time in my life I've got to see thoroughbreds. And there was one that was named after the great Don Rickles called Mrs. Rickles. It's called Mrs. Rickles. And she won, and I don't believe they had shoes on. I had to text Patty to find out what the hell is this no shoes thing mean. She told me maybe it means they're faster, and the damn horse won. So kudos to Patty for leading me to a victory.
Or the thought I have, Dave, is what's the turf? What's the turf like? Is it a thick one or is it a fast one?
Well, it was dirty, and it had a lot of. Can I say shit on here?
Mm-hmm.
We had some discoloration of the black turf with the brown. We noticed that, and a bird eating it. That's all I know about the turf.
I'd be surprised if they didn't have shoes, but sometimes, depending on the turf, the size of the shoe is a little hard to see.
Well,
that's what I saw at Philly.
I have another. It could be a Japanese track, and they take their shoes off and they enter.
You know, so you're saying there are rules to this.
A little bit.
Yeah, could be rules.
Well, let me ask you this, Dave. Did you bet on Mrs. Rickles?
Oh, I did, and I won. I actually won. There were 8 races, and I won 4 of them. Unfortunately, I do the sabermetric method of betting, by picking guys that have won a lot. So I didn't make a lot of money on it. But I won 50% of my bets here, including Mrs. Rickles. I got a picture. I wish I could figure out how to show it to you guys on here. You know, maybe if I can, I'll show you Mrs. Rickles in a little bit. But
hockey puck.
Bennington's still looking for that. Bennington's still looking for that after.
I know. Nice game. But, you know, I was asking about the rules, don't you guys? You know,
we call that a segue, Dave.
Okay. We're going to do a power segue here into our top topic of the night, the unwritten rules of baseball. You know, we went to school with the flounder Mark Madden, and sometimes he can be infuriating. He wrote an article on the unwritten rules of baseball this week that I pertaining to the Pirates Red series, which, you know, is a little comical that they do the unwritten rules of baseball there with throwing at each other to as he compares it to a fourth grade lunch fight. But his synopsis is this throwing at guys is cowardice, which I believe. I would also say that it makes the pitchers and managers pussies because they're throwing at defenseless people, 95 to 100 miles an hour. These are maybe it was okay in the 40s and 50s when they were throwing in the 80s, but even the slow guys now are throwing 94 miles an hour. He says at the end, throwing a baseball at a defenseless hitter with intent is the single most cowardly act in sports. Do that and your grandfather should slap you. Of course, referring to Steve Demeter, who our announcers went on a little hissy fit claiming that Steve would slap his grandson, Dietrich, in the head if he knew he was going around the bases so slowly, which Madden claiming that he probably would hug him for being so good, which I tend to believe. But to me, the only thing that would make this less cowardly is if the next inning the managers had to go to bat to face a pitcher and put their own selves on the line there. It's one of the worst things, worse than swinging a stick at somebody's head in hockey because you're throwing 100 mile an hour. I don't care if you have a batting helmet on. That's one of the most dangerous things you can do. You throw at their hands, you could cost them a long time out. It's just ridiculous. But in looking up the unwritten rules of baseball, some of them are good. Mm-hmm. Some of them are stupid. I brought it down a couple we can discuss. Don't steal when you have a big lead. Bullshit. The whole concept of baseball is teams can come back. You don't lay up or it could cost you down the road. Don't steal when you're too far behind. Again, a bullshit concept because, isn't the option of baseball there are no clocks. You can come back. Mm-hmm. Stay in the dugout after you've been pulled. I like that one. I hate when they go to the dugout and end. Don't make the first out at third base of an inning. I like that too. I always thought stealing third was a stupid concept when a single will bring you in from second. Don't talk about a no-hitter. Don't say the word no-hitter. I mean, isn't that common thought? You jinx the no-hitter at that point. Never bunt to break up a no-hitter. One I disagree with vehemently because the idea is to win the game. So if you're bunting and can get on base, you bunt to get on base, even when the pitcher is one-handed. You caught my Jim Abbott? I don't know. I don't know what to call it.
I didn't pick up that. Now I am.
All right.
He was a good fielder, though. He was a better fielder than some other people.
He was a good fielder.
Yeah.
Maybe Monty Stratton when they done it against him in the movie. Yeah. Jimmy Stewart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He made it to the mound. Don't show up teammates, which is in any sport. That should be a written rule. Don't over-celebrate a strikeout. Don't over-celebrate a homer. And the eye for the beanball. These are the last three that are probably more relevant here. I don't know. You go back and forth with the if somebody hits your guy, you'll hit somebody else. I don't know. I don't know how you stop it. I don't know how you police it. Do you suspend the guys for hitting? Do you try to assume the intent at the time? That's a bit of a tough one. But with the way Major League Baseball is trying to promote these guys as boys will be boys, unwritten rule, don't celebrate the strikeout for pitchers, and the unwritten rule, don't celebrate the home run, are going to go down the tubes. Personally, the thing I had the problem with Dietrich, and again, I buy the concept. If you want to stop them doing it, then be better at it. Be a better pitcher at that point. Don't give up the home run. That's how to stop. I think it's Bush League to sit there and kind of stare at the home run, then mock as you go around the bases because more of his home runs meant nothing to the outcome of the game. Quite a few of them. He's hit 7 against the Pirates this year, if I'm not mistaken. But I'd say half of them were in situations where they were far behind at the time. Pisses you off. I don't think throwing a ball at his head is the right answer, but that's what I always think when you're throwing at a guy at 97 mile an hour. I mean, I had somebody respond to me on Facebook when I made a post kind of defending Madden's article, and he was a Cincinnati fan who basically, well, you guys won't object when we hit Josh Bell the next time, being that their manager had a little meltdown after the game like a 2-year-old. I said, yeah, I'll get mad just like I got mad when Kutch lost a good bit of the season, I believe it was 2012, because Chapman decided to hit him in the back for hitting a home run, not even showing him up the inning before. And one time, if I'm not mistaken, he hit him in the hands. So I might have maybe the hands one was the one that sent him out for a long period of time. But this is bullshit. In my mind, these guys need serious suspensions if they throw at somebody, if they hit somebody. The manager should always, if it's an obvious intent situation, the manager should be kicked out for an extended period of time. I think it's dangerous. I think it's useless to the game. And, maybe I'm stepping out on the old-fashioned thing, but if you want to stop a guy from hitting home runs on you, then pitch better. Do a better job. Fletch.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you.
I figured you would.
Although I say the head's off limits. There's nothing wrong with dusting somebody up a little every now and then, especially it's a way to police the game a bit. You know, you drill them in the ass. You don't drill them in the head. You don't go after the hands. And there are a couple problems. One, the batters are wearing so much padding right now and they're crowding the plate. They're taking the plate away from the pitchers. So I think that at a certain point, you need to be able to take control of the plate and back that person off. Now, I know those are two different things, but I mean, I think that you need to be able to police the game a little bit with that. David, there are a couple other of those unwritten rules that we should talk about. This is one that a friend of mine told me about that I never really heard of before. And I played baseball through American Legion ball, was never walk in front of the catcher. It's a sign of disrespect. Didn't know that one.
That was actually on the list I was looking at. I left it off because I never heard it myself.
That one is out. You don't hear about that much, but that is out there. Same thing with hitters not running across the mound.
Right.
Same thing. Yep.
Well, the other one too, and this one also goes with the beanball, is that you never rub where you've been hit, which is probably good if you get drilled in the groin, because that might be a bad thing. You know? But apparently you're not supposed to show that you've been hit and it hurts.
So if you rub the groin several minutes,
you get put in timeout.
You're not hurt anymore.
You get hair on your hands too.
Apparently it goes blind too. The nuns used to say that to me at Greensburg Central. I had trouble seeing you for a while.
But, you know, a lot of these other ones make a lot of sense. I'm with you, man. The way the game is playing right now, the way the home runs are flying out of the ballparks, I'm stealing when I get a chance. Although, frankly, who steals anymore? That stolen base seems to be gone from the game, which is unfortunate because that was one of the things that I always loved. The other one, you know, the center fielder is the king, man. He's the one who determines who's taking what out in the outfield. Sometimes center fielders are calling for balls that they have no business calling for, but they are the center fielder, so you let them go.
Yeah.
The other one, playing the infield in early. I go back and forth on it. If I know if I've got someone that I may not get more than 1 or 2 runs off a starter, you know, I may be playing that infield in. Yeah, I'll risk that big inning on that one.
Yeah.
The bunt to break up a no-hitter, you know what? You do that, next time you're up, you're getting one in your ear. That's just the way it is. You know,
I think you go for the win. I think you get on base any way you can and screw the other guy.
What's the rule on the no-hitter talking? Is it 4 innings or is it 5?
It is 5.
5? Okay.
Once it's half over.
You know, I remember watching a Pirates-Dodgers game when I was living out in L.A. I think it was 1990. And it was a particularly nasty game when both teams were throwing at each other. And the funniest part was Don Drysdale was still doing the color commentary for the Dodgers. And he came on and he was decrying what was going on. I'm like, dude, when you were pitching, if someone looked at you the wrong way, they were picking themselves off the ground. Yeah. I mean, some of the great pitchers you knew, like Bob Gibson, you didn't want to dig in there because he was going to drill you. He was roommates with Bill White when they were the Cardinals. And White got traded away to the Giants. And he knew the first time, in fact, he was Gibson's roommate. He knew that after he left the Cardinals, the first time that he faced him, he was going to get drilled because Gibson was sending him a message. It's like, it's all off, roomie. This isn't happening anymore. He got drilled. He knew it. He took his base very quietly and went along his business. I mean, there was – but you're right, Dave. I mean, the other part about it is just the sheer speed of the game right now. I have no problem with sending messages. Just don't do it around the head. Don't do it around the hands.
And that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about I believe in pitching inside. I believe in getting them off the plate. I'm talking about when these guys are wailing at the head in an obvious –
You throw out their ass. You throw out their leg.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
You take the head out of the equation. I don't like when they throw at the hands. Sometimes that happens by accident. I know when you're trying to get inside because the hands, that's the one injury that seems to take a player out the longest. is when you hit the hands. But what I'm talking about is the headshots, not the.
No, I agree with that. But here's the other problem that happens.
Yeah.
You're a young pitcher. Your teammate just got knocked down or hit. You're pretty much expected to retaliate, or you lose the respect of your team. And that's part of the culture that's difficult.
But again, it depends what they're going for. I rather doubt at times the policing the game thing, especially in this series, this Pirate Red series, because they're just hitting each other left and right. So it's not really policing anything. I mean, it's almost ridiculous at this point.
So go for that.
Yeah. But you're right. If you're pitching inside, you get as much of that plate as the batter does. If the batter is standing, and that's why Suarez is getting hit, is because he's on top of the plate
and leaning in. Yeah. I mean, that's the other part of it. Don't glare at a pitcher for taking the inside of the plate. You know what?
Right.
That's part of the game.
Yeah.
What do you think, Gary?
Well, unfortunately, Chris, a couple things you said are right on the money, and I think it's a big part of the problem. It's not part of the game anymore. I mean, the umpires, even our commissioner's office again, they don't allow these guys to throw the ball inside, work guys back. You know, and I think you touch on two guys, like you think about the Drysdale or the Gibsons, or even some guys in the 70s, Vida Blue, Clemens in the 80s. I mean, he was a jerk, but still, they would move that ball inside to get you off the plate, get you a little off balance. You can't do that anymore. Yeah. I mean, this clown Dietrich, and I don't care if the Cincinnati guy's listening, you know, he can crowd that plate. He can put all his armor on. He can stand there and mug for himself and look at his bat 75 times. It isn't personal, but, you know, they can do whatever they want, okay? And the pitcher can't pitch inside. And I think that's part of the problem. Now, Dave, I'm with you, lock, stock, and barrel. Now, the lame excuses that come up from these managers, well, the ball just got away. The baloney. After somebody homered the inning before and you didn't like how he stood there, then you're hitting him. I don't want to hear it. Throwing a ball behind somebody like some of these clowns do. I got no tolerance for that kind of stuff or the hands. But the being hit on purpose, I don't like either, but you got to let these guys pitch inside. This is big league baseball. Sorry. Okay? You've been seeing 90-mile-an-hour fastballs or more, sliders and all that stuff all the way up through college baseball now and everything else. I'm not 100% that it's the most gutless thing I've ever seen, but if you purposely throw at somebody's head or hands, that's one thing. But to take away the insides became a big problem in the game because you got these clowns standing up there mugging. It isn't just Dietrich. You know, Puig's basically a failure after that first 3 months. Guy gets a double, he's mugging for the camera. It's clown Batista. I'm sick of this stuff. Well, not because I'm old school, but like I thought the ad campaign last year was the worst thing I ever seen. Let the kids play. Let the kids play by standing there mugging and walking around the bases, by, pumping your fist because you struck out somebody with a 5-run lead in the 8th inning. I mean, come on. I mean, like, I think that turns off even the casual fans sometimes. Like, what's this guy doing?
Well, and I'll tell you what, you mentioned Puig. There was a moment during the first Dietrich homer, the day he had the 3 homers, that Puig looked at him in a real pissed off manner. And when Dietrich went to give him the high five, Puig just kind of turned around and went off. He did not like the showboating.
Maybe, and that's a good thing. But when he was in L.A., he used to irritate everybody. He'd get a single and he'd be mugging for the camera and point. Everybody's pointing to the sky. Just knock it off.
Right.
Okay? And another point Fletch said, I think, is right on the money. I'm sorry, you got to take this equipment off. All this guards on the arms and no, even on the shin. Unless you've got a documented injury, take it off. I mean, they're up there with armor. It's like hockey now. There's no fear.
And they're still getting injured.
Right. Yes. But, I mean, I don't think you should be throwing at somebody. I think Madden, as usual, just like when we knew him before, to me, that's too extreme. I don't think your argument that you guys were making, both him and you, the Cincinnati fans, dead wrong. You're saying the same thing. You don't think you should be throwing at anybody because they hit a home run.
Yeah.
But I also got a big problem with baseball letting this Some of these guys now have basically an arm guard on.
Right.
I'm sorry. Then don't play big league baseball if you don't want to get hit. Too bad.
Right.
And secondly, the pitcher's got to have the inside half.
Yeah.
You got to be able to have it. Now, that is where I am. Now, some of the unwritten rules, you guys have touched on a lot of them. You know, the no-hitter, not talking about it's a little bit silly because all you got to do is look up at the scoreboard and probably there's a phone in the dugout that says it's going on. I think it's just the head, both catchers and pitchers' head. I kind of understand that.
I don't think we should jinx it, Gary.
Right, like we have an effect on it. We're the right fielder.
You're stepping on bad mojo there.
But the point is, I understand that.
He's drinking. What are you drinking there, Gary?
Not enough, apparently.
Oh man.
You know, the don't steal third with no outs, or don't steal third with the two outs. You know, I agree with that one too. You're already in scoring position. If you're a big league player, the majority of big league players, other than some catchers and stuff, ought to be able to score on a single. The stolen bases, I think, Fletch, I agree with you that the way the game is today, you know, I think you ought to be able to run up to a certain point, behind or ahead. For the same reasons you say, Dave, about trying to win the game, because a lot of runs come on a home run.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, if you're not hitting any home runs and you're in a month-long slump because of all these analytics and this crap, you might have to be able to do that sometimes, even when you're ahead, to protect the lead. And let's face it, the pitching staffs have gotten far thinner. This isn't years ago when every starter went to the 8th inning.
Right.
You know? The don't admire home run, I'm with that one. I think you're entitled to have a little bit of excitement. You hit a game-winning homer. You know, you're in a good streak, you hit a homer. But some of the stuff that I see now, beyond just this guy Dietrich, it's just ridiculous. You know, you hear all this talk, well, we got more Dominican players in the game. They're more flamboyant. Well, that's nice, but you're not playing the Caribbean. You're playing the major leagues. You're playing the United States. This game's been around for 125 years. There's a reason why it was done this way. Then don't complain when somebody buzzes you inside, okay, in my view. You play for one run, it's all you'll get. What a bunch of baloney.
Yeah.
There's plenty of situations that come up early in the game, late in the game, where that one run could matter, as you touched on, Fletch. You know, it's interesting to me how we keep these old theories that don't bring the infield in and don't play for a one run earlier. Don't bunt in the first inning. But then we bring a guy out, we contradict ourselves, we bring a guy out to pitch 2 innings to get through the top of the order because all the runs may come in the first inning. Well, you can't have a cake and eat it too, okay? You got to be able to bunt, play for one run if you're going to bring a guy in to pitch 1 inning to get through hitters 1 through 4.
Right.
You know, it's funny, the don't step on the pitcher's mound and the don't walk in front of the catcher, those two, to me, a little bit archaic. I remember Dallas Braden, I think, got into it with Rodriguez because I think he tried to – I can't remember what happened. I think he tried to go on a hit and run, and Rodriguez cut across, and they almost got into it. I mean, that's the mound's like your territory? There's a whole field out there, clown. You know, and that's like Dallas Braden was Bob Gibson. I mean, seriously? I mean, that kind of stuff just is ridiculous and archaic to me. You know, if it's so dependent upon luck, then what are we playing 162 games for? Play for a win on the road and a tie at home.
Oh, I forgot
that. I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, it depends on the circumstance. I mean, what if it's late in the year? I mean, it's late in the year and you're trailing down a pennant race. You got to win these games. Or depending on what bullpen's left or who's worked the night before, a long game. I think that's a little bit archaic too to me. I think every situation, if these guys are going to say so much about analytics, then they ought to be able to manage on the fly and use the personnel on the fly, including using the closer early. Closer going longer than 1 inning, depending on the situation.
Which is one thing I always loved about Mike Matheny. Is every time I watched him manage, he was always managing to win, including making controversial moves. I mean, controversial. That doesn't come up well. That looks kind of weird.
I got it.
Okay. We got you, though. The air quotes.
But you know, he went against that and always seemed like every game was going for a win, not really giving a damn whether his guy had pitched 20 pitches over the last 3 days.
There's such a babying now with the comfort zones too. Well, you know, I'm only comfortable coming in a clean inning in the 9th inning. Well, guess what? Tonight's game doesn't present that. Okay, the game's right here in the 7th inning with 2 outs.
Right.
Okay, you're coming in now. Maybe a guy isn't conditioned if he's throwing 100 miles an hour to work later on than that. But again, I think it can be a little more flexible.
Right.
The don't bunt to break up a no-hitter. You know, I love Nolan Ryan. but that was a couple times I disagreed with him. I think it was what started, I think, that fight with Ventura, the famous fight, was I think somebody bunted on him when he had something going earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm with you, Dave. I mean, I think you're supposed to defend. Again, this is big league baseball.
Yeah.
Okay. And if a guy who's a big, you know, if a big, heavy first baseman wants to lay down a bunt and you're not paying attention to third base, pitcher shouldn't be mad at the other team. He should be looking at his own third baseman. Right. Sorry. You know,
I agree. Screw Monty Stratton is what you're saying.
What's that?
Screw Monty Stratton. Wobble, big man, wobble.
We're Monty. We're Monty or Abbott. Yeah. Yeah. Let me see. I had one other one here. I guess we touched on it. I read one here today on Bleacher Report, which is interesting. Paint the corners on an 0-2 count. Well, that one's certainly gone completely out the window because now we got everybody 6'6" trying to throw the ball 100 miles an hour. They don't really pitch anymore. If you want to talk about pitching and change the pitching mentality, I would tend to agree with that one, but that just doesn't. That just doesn't happen.
Here's the thing, Gary. There's nothing that makes me angrier than seeing a pitcher give up a big fat home run on an 0-2 pitch. That would just drive me insane.
But how much do you see of it now?
You see it you watch a few Pirate games, you'll see them.
Well, I think that's my point. I think the game, I think instead of people talking about how ridiculous some of these rules are, they should really think about strategically how they're doing things. You know, I mean, all these guys can go 5 innings and they can throw the ball 100 miles. I would talk about this 1,000 times. How about some of the pitching coaches saying, you know, I'm going to show you some film of Zane Smith or hell, even Drebeck or somebody. Get a big lead, let him hit it. Let him hit it. Let the ball get in play. That's why you have 8 guys out there behind you.
Yeah.
So, you know, I just think, to me, I think some of the rules are ridiculous. Some of the rules, to me, should not be applied in every case. And, again, contradictory. Don't bring the infield in early. Don't bunt in the first inning. Well, then don't put an opener out there. And then on the other hand, on the managers, well, you know, these are the guys' roles. But it's so important that you come in the 8th inning, you face one batter. You can't pitch an inning once. I mean, one thing to add to this, there was an article in a paper that we get here, we ride the trains today, and it sounded just like us. Guy by the name of Glenn Mack now.
Yes.
And it's interesting where he finally came, Dave, Chris, about this. He finally said, he goes, you know, he's about our age, good writer. He does some radio stuff. He's done some Inquirer stuff here. He said, I don't think baseball's in trouble, which is what I always say. He said, but clearly there's confusion at the top and it's got to be fixed. So his advocate was get rid of the shift. A lot of these teams are not going to adjust to it. These general managers, they're Harvard graduates. They continue to want to put these guys in a lot because they were talking. He goes, I am so tired of hearing about some of these GMs talk about like it's a business situation where there's only 3 true outcomes. He said, I'm tired of hearing it. He goes, the game's dull. There's a lot of standing around. It's taking 4 hours to play a 9-inning game. Get rid of the shift. Make the 3-batter rule into place. Guys got all these analytics. They can't figure out what left-hander can face a right-hander once in a while. You know, he goes, it's probably time. And he pointed out to some of the stuff you pointed out, Dave, I think, about the attendance drops. I didn't realize it's actually down 19%.
It's
Major League attendance since 2009, which is amazing. That's a big number. And he commented last in the article about the Manfred thing, where I guess, did Manfred come out last week? I didn't see it. Say something like, well, there's all these other entertainment options now. That sounds to me like a guy grasping at straws.
That sounds like a guy who needs to get taken out of his job is what it sounds like. Although I'll disagree with that man on the shifts. Shifts are part of the game. Shifts have always been part of the game. So you want to defeat the shift, learn how to hit the opposite way.
But his point was he would agree, but he said he's not comfortable anymore. He said even watching the Phillies, he said, you know, he goes, look, Harper, we're glad to have him here. He said, but how many times have you counted this year where all you had to do was get the bat on the ball and change your strat? He goes, they can't do it. He said, so I'm convinced that these front offices are not going to try to fix that problem.
I don't think it's that they can't do it. I think they have the ego that they will defeat it by hitting a home run. That's on them. The only thing I would say to change that would help the offense is an automated strike zone. Because, like, I'm watching this game tonight, there were 4 balls right in the strike zone that the guy did not give Steve Brault in a time. So now he's not knowing what the hell he can pitch.
It's a big factor in the game's problems, too, because what it does is it causes all deep counts. It causes these guys to fiddle around and not challenge, even with the pitch clock. And I think the problem is you put it with all the other stuff. That, to me, is also something that's never talked about enough. We've talked about this before. I don't want an umpire's ego. Sorry. Strike zone small. Well, then too bad. Then you're not in the big leagues. This is a strike zone. Start doing it. We're going to measure that. If you won't do it, we're going to replace you.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, we can talk about this a long time, and we have, and we will again. But as one sport seems to be hurting a little, another got a big kick in the ass this week.
And who called it, Dave? Who called it?
This man right here, Mr. Gary, while everybody was mocking the heavyweight champion of the world with a man that reminded you of the great Butterbean. I told you once to get Butterbean in there, Fletch. And two-ton Tony Galento. This guy just, in my mind, could have given boxing the CPR that it might have needed. And there's your segue, my friend. Tell us a little about that fight.
Well, I hope you caught it, both of you guys, and I hope people, watching us or listening to us caught it. It does ring true. I can't remember who said. I think it was one of the promoters. For some reason, it's escaping me. But there's heavyweight boxing and everything else. 100% true. A lot of great boxing below it. But the fact of the matter was, a heavyweight fight like that with that kind of dramatic, unexpected change. It's got a lot of people talking about it, and if you're watching, it was damn dramatic. But I think it's interesting, though. There was
before he goes on, Fletch. He asked me about it Saturday morning if I saw it. I don't have DAZN, so I didn't get it. And I said, who won? He refused to tell me who won. He said, just go see it. So I found it on YouTube, and mine was blowing. So go ahead, Gary. I'm sorry.
Well, I didn't know if you had DAZN, and I don't know if you do, Chris. But
I don't, but I did the same thing. I found it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, with all the boxing and even some of the other, the MMA that I'm watching, because of my interest in it, you have to have DAZN now. I mean, that's become the HBO or Showtime, really. But it's interesting. The media, again, I think, has failed itself again. I was really bitter about this when I first talked to you about it, Dave, but I'm not bitter because, honestly, it opens up the door for some guys like us. We're trying to take a little bit of the lack of preparation and opinion out of it and talk about fact. Ruiz was a decorated amateur. He fought 150-some amateur fights. He won over 100 of them. I mean, he was a fantastic amateur despite his body. He has fast hands. He moves his head, something you don't see all that much in boxing, particularly in the heavyweight division. He, I think, did about 2 interviews before the fight, before he left California. And DAZN, the network, never had any segment on him at all. Joshua must have done 7 different DAZN interviews. Stuff that has absolutely no value at all. Him coming, walking the streets in New York, and they're giving him timberlands and the Yankee hat. I mean, this is all nice. This isn't really entertainment. You got 2 big men hitting each other in the head, okay? Pretty much. A lot of people around him. Nobody talked about the fact that Joshua has a glass chin. In his last 6 fights, he's been rocked hard 3 times. Everybody talked about his great fight with Klitschko. It was a great fight. It was entertaining. Klitschko was 40 years old, pretty much done. He put Joshua in his can twice, hard. So did Dillian White a couple years earlier, and so did Alexander Povetkin, another decorated amateur that Joshua fought 2 fights ago. So
you made
conditions were there.
Reference earlier. That was the perfect description of this guy.
Well, I mean, I think what I see here, and the Brits are going to choke on this, and with your segment, I know is going to be, they're going to love you and hate me. But Frank Bruno was a body beautiful. And he was 6'5", and he looked like he was going to be a world beater, but he was a little stand-up rigid, similar to what we saw on Saturday. He didn't know what to do when he was hurt. And third, he had somewhat of a glass chin when he was rocked. Similar elements here. Now, I don't think Joshua is as bad as he looked like they always say, and I don't think Ruiz was as good as he was. But the interesting thing about that fight was when Joshua put Ruiz down, Ruiz got right up, and he started fighting back harder. Again, a decorated amateur nobody gave him credit for. He's been heavily avoided. He only had one professional loss, and that was highly disputed in New Zealand, where he fought a New Zealand heavyweight. When Joshua got rocked, he looked like he wanted out of there from the very beginning, and he didn't know what to do.
He quit.
And he kind of quit at the end in the seventh, definitely. And Ruiz didn't quit at all. So, the media who didn't give Ruiz any credit, the ones who didn't make fun of, the ones who made fun of his body, body beautiful doesn't mean he can fight. Every Holyfield has a body beautiful Lennox Lewis who can fight. There's plenty of them who can't. There's been plenty of guys throughout boxing history, the guys you mentioned, Dave, and others. They don't look that nice, but they can fight. And Ruiz can fight. Now, is he the greatest heavyweight ever? No. Is he a better heavyweight than people give him credit for? Yes. Is this Tyson Douglas? No. Is it in the top 10 of upsets in history? It could be. I don't know if Josh was good enough yet to say that, but it certainly was a great night for boxing. It's got a lot of people talking about it. Now, ironically, I don't know if I called the win. I just said it would be more competitive potentially.
Gary, you called it. But you know the real reason that fight turned out the way it did?
Because I called it.
Well, besides that. it was the Drake curse.
Help me out.
He was taking pictures of himself hanging out with Drake.
Okay.
Drake, as we've said before, Drake is bad news for if he is a fan of your team, you're in trouble.
Very Justin Bieber like.
It was incredible. Yeah. I mean, and the other thing that Joshua did, he mocked the Drake curse right before the fight.
What was he thinking?
Don't do that.
I'm telling you, these guys got not only all this preparation, they better think about this stuff. I agree with you. So,
but yeah, I mean, he was taking pictures with Drake, and then actually saying, "There's nothing to this Drake curse."
There is something now. It is an unwritten rule of sportsdom.
Oh, there you go.
Drake. Don't hang with the Drake.
Drake bad. Drake bad.
Oh my gosh. So
it was an exciting night. Boxing's got another chance, Dave, Chris, which I think continues to fail at. And here's what it is. Over the last year, we got all this yapping. Well, I'm not going to do that because it's not enough money. Well, the networks. Well, we got different promoters. There was 3 or 4 good fights. There was Luis Ortiz, was another good heavyweight, also a decorated Olympian when he was with Cuba. He had a great fight with Deontay Wilder 2 years ago in March. Both guys knocked each other down. Rematch never happened. Everybody thought Wilder was going to walk right through Tyson Fury. I think I remember us talking about that. I said, I don't think so. Fury's 6'9". He's a tremendous boxer. Tremendous fight. No rematch. Now we got a chance again. Now it's a scramble again. Mm-hmm. I don't particularly love Teddy Atlas, but he did say the one thing in his comments after the fight is, you want a heavyweight scramble like this. That's why the 70s fighters were far better, and I think the 90s were too. But there was a lot of open territory then for different reasons. Ali, it came back after he had to serve or rather he couldn't fight. He wasn't the same after that. You had a lot of great fighters come in. In the 90s, you had Tyson, when he got incarcerated, he was away from the game for a while. A lot of guys got the spotlight. Kind of have the same situation now. I don't think these guys are as good. I think they're all flawed more than that. Let's see what happens, because one of the things I kind of got the feeling was, to finish this up, Joshua was way too conciliatory. I don't want the ghetto, yapping, people rob me, that kind of stuff. Way too conciliatory in the post-fight interviews, way too accepting of the fact that Ruiz won. Has he made too much money from doing nothing so far? Probably. That's a little bit different than the 90s and the 70s too. So, when guys are making 10, 12 million bucks for one fight.
Anna Kournikova made a lot of money for doing nothing.
Who did?
Anna Kournikova. And she looks better than Ruiz.
Certainly does.
Although he might have bigger breasts.
But he's got fast hands, and he moves really well, and he moves his head. And nobody thought about that. And
nobody did.
We did. So, good night for boxing.
That's outstanding. That's outstanding. Mr. Fletch, what do you have for us?
Well, I'm going to add one more of those unwritten rules, and it's actually one of my moments of the week, and that's you just don't mess with Walker Buehler. First of all, the very name is perfect. It's like Texas Walker, Texas Ranger, and Ferris Bueller together, so something's just going to come there. Yeah. He was pitching against the I guess it was the Diamondbacks. I don't know if you saw this, Gary, but he struck somebody out. I think it was Vargas. He struck him out, and then he taunted him, and he said, "Don't fucking look at me." And then he said, "Go fucking sit down." Now that's
oh my God, that's
fantastic. So
well, those two organizations have never had. They hate each other. Going back to the very first, was it Showalter? Was there? So well, we're gonna teach everybody how to play the game. The Dodgers took huge offense at that.
Oh, and well, they should have.
Yeah. So but, you're right, though.
That was my singular moment of the week. But here's the other thing, guys. We've got some nice playoffs going on in both the NBA and the NHL. I mean, last night's hockey game, very entertaining. Very, very entertaining.
Yeah.
Some nice hitting in it. Movement back and forth. The flow was good. It was a really good game. It was light years away from game one. I mean, the rest of the series has looked pretty good. And then the other one, the NBA Finals, I learned a new word. I never heard the word janky before.
You never heard janky?
Janky.
Oh, my gosh.
Steph Curry said that the Raptors had a janky defense.
I didn't hear him say that. That's interesting.
Janky.
What does that mean? A tight defense?
Well, it means that they're a bunch of, well, where's the sign? They're a bunch of bushers.
Oh, okay. That's what he's saying.
They're inept.
Okay.
Because apparently they panicked a little bit and they kept running at him, and his teammates were open and they were draining shots.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna quote the great Rudy Tomjanovich on that last game in the game 2 in the NBA Finals. That was a team that had some heart. They came out. They were down. They were down on the road. They could have been coming home down 2-0, but they summed it up. And this team, guys, I don't know what Steve Kerr does at halftime, what adjustments he makes, what speeches he have, but damn it, did they come out in the third quarter and just beat down people. And they did it again this game. And, Steph Curry was laboring pretty well in the first half. He came back. This is a team that is not full. I mean, you still have Durant out, and Klay Thompson doesn't look like he's particularly healthy either. But you got to give these guys some respect, and it's really entertaining basketball. And here's the thing that's coming up with Game 3, which is going to be pretty exciting. It's going to be the first NBA Finals game ever played outside of the United States. So we're looking forward to that. So that's my moment of the week. And Dave, don't fucking look at me.
Yeah, it's funny. I wouldn't have expected that from Bueller though, because is he Vandy? He's Vandy, right? Like, isn't he Vanderbilt?
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have expected that because he's a Southerner.
And go to Vanderbilt though.
But he's a Southerner, isn't he?
It's an unwritten rule.
Yeah, well, but I mean, I think there was a guy. Remember Gerardo Parra?
Oh yeah.
There was a situation like that where what we were talking about the first thing. I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember who the pitcher was. It was the same kind of thing though. Like Parra, I think they were trailing by like 6 runs, and he hits a home run. He's standing there looking at it. And as he came around the bases, one of the Dodger pitchers yelled at him too. Yeah. I think. But it's funny. I went out there for spring training, just to add to that, Fletch. I went out there for spring training, and I saw those teams actually. They don't collide very often, but they did. Even in that spring training game, you could see there wasn't a lot of talking between the organizations. No, they hate each other. Yeah. I mean, that is clear. And then when Greinke signed there, I know the Dodger organization, because of the money they threw at him, they were pretty burned by that.
Can't we just all love each other?
Of course, right? Yes. So, but I'm not surprised Bueller did it, knowing the history of those two organizations.
But I mean, you could clearly, and I'm not the best lip reader in the world. I'm no George Costanza, by the way. But you could clearly see what he was saying, and I thought, ooh, that's a bit much. I got one other thing, guys. I actually got my first bit of fan mail from somebody named Deb in Penn Hills.
Wow.
Who wanted to know, said, it appears that you actually are drinking beer during these podcasts. Is that true? So I wanted to spell, yes, I am. And tonight's beer choice is Prima Pils from Victory. It's a Pennsylvania beer, fellas.
It's a real beer. And we don't know what Gary, because I heard him say clearly to Patty, don't give me that bottle. Give me the bottle I missed.
The Aaron Pryor.
So,
Aaron Pryor against Alexis Arguello.
Clearly heard him say that to Patty early on. I wish I had taped it.
And then
I have had a beverage that has had some alcohol in it when we've done these, but this time I am actually sticking with water, believe it or not.
All right.
Yes.
Well, guys, I'm going to talk about my moment of the week. So, one that reminds me of April 14th, 1979. What the hell are you talking about, Dave? I was at the Pirate game that day. They had defeated the St. Louis Cardinals 7-4. Eddie Ott hit a 2-run homer in the sixth to put them up. But I didn't see any of that. I spent the time at the souvenir stand watching on a little black and white TV the Fergie Flyer going end to end to make his famous overtime goal and give the Penguins a first-round victory over, I believe, the Buffalo Sabres.
Yes.
Yep.
This past week, our dear friend Billy Rainier, at the beginning of the season, said, hey, you want to go to Chris Archer bobblehead night? I said, okay, no problem. So they moved Chris Archer bobblehead night to the day, 4 o'clock. And it unfortunately conflicted with the Liverpool Tottenham game. So not wanting to, blow off Billy, I went to the game with them. But I had my iPad with me watching the TNT feed of the game the whole time, paying little attention to the actual 7-hour extravaganza.
Yeah.
So for the last 40 minutes, I excused myself. I went to the concourse, and I watched the rest of that game just in utter fear because Tottenham was outplaying the hell out of Liverpool the whole game while Liverpool was holding on to a 1-0 lead. Allison is the signing of the year at goaltender. If he's goaltender last year, we're talking potentially a back-to-back performance because Mignolet, who was the goaltender last year, really sucked in that game. One of the worst goaltended games I've ever seen in a 3-1 loss, and he was the reason they lost. So I was watching it there, and then a guy who you can only compare to Max Talbot. His name is Divock Origi. Guy, 24-year-old Belgian, didn't play much during the year, but has a lot of potential. All of a sudden, he scores 2 goals in a roll against Barcelona in the semifinals. And at about, I want to say, the 86 or 87 mark, just scores one of the greatest goals, like Max Talbot did in Game 7 against the Red Wings. And people thought I was mental. I heard the 911 being called as I was jumping, screaming, going nuts in the corner. I'm not sure if they understood why. One person did, screaming, what happened, what happened? But a very emotional win. Liverpool has been like the Steelers. They won 4 European titles in the 70s and 80s, 77, 78, 81, and 84. They thought it would go on like we did, one for the thumb, so to speak. It wasn't until 2005 when they won that one for the thumb in just a dramatic European final that they were down 3-0 and scored 3 goals in 6 minutes and then won on penalty kicks, which is the ultimate pussy way to end a ball game. A European final you play till somebody wins. But nonetheless, they won that, and then it took them another 14 years until they won the 6th one. And it was a dramatic, it was an emotional, I thought I was going to, shed a couple emotional tears at the end. I held myself going. And then we had one of the great moments, a moment we're going to replicate right here. Mr. Fletcher, do you have the music?
Well, give me a second to get it. But Dave, let me just say a couple of things. I actually watched the game, and for you to get me to watch soccer, you know that there's something going on there.
Oh man!
And I have a question for you for the Chris Archer bobblehead. Does it have his head going back as he's watching ball? Is that how it bobbles? Or
Weirdly enough, I pulled his head off and did that just to make it look more accurate. But I have 3. Viv and Kara came with me, so I have now 3 Chris Orchard bobbleheads.
wow.
eBay.
I know. Yeah, I'm thinking I might get up to $2-3 for it.
All right, Dave. Let's see what we got here. See if this works.
I also watched it, Dave, based upon your passion.
Come on, guys.
Oh, go ahead.
And
Don't be afraid of the dark.
At the end
Of a storm.
there's a
Golden sky.
and the
Sweet
song of a lark. The fuck's a lark?
on
wind.
the wind.
On
The rain.
your
Dreams.
And walk on with hope
In
in
your
your
heart,
heart, and you'll
Never
never walk alone. Stay there. You'll never walk alone.
alone.
big finish, boys.
Let's do it. Walk on with hope
In
in
your
your
heart,
heart, and you'll never walk alone. Bring it home, Dare. Bring it home, Fletch. Oh,
We should have a pint or something to lift.
Well, we should do
Unfortunately,
this.
Fletch has it. So
I'm going to play this for you guys. Now, this is the equivalent of Earl Weaver and John McGraw, as far as comparison to two European soccer coaches. Very surly, very tough. I'm looking to see if I have this here. Oh, I don't. But they looked out as they were singing this song. Wenger and Marino, who are two like I can't find it here. Damn, that's all I'm going to say. But anyways, they looked out at the people singing in the post-game show, and they had them there obviously for their insight on the game. But they were so amazed. Basically, Moreno told the other guy to shut up and just look at it. He goes, "This is the most amazing thing you'll ever see." And just the sight of about 30,000 Liverpool fans, half the stadium, singing that song, it was amazing. It was just an amazing moment. I mean, a very emotional moment, and you suck, Tottenham. 6. Man City, you got your little title. We got the European title. So screw you. We are the champions, and they can all sit and they can whine about their little title. It's the equivalent of winning the National League East or the World Series. Which one do you want? Huh? We're going to fly our Eastern Division title, 1990 title over and say, oh, we're proud of this. You know, screw you, Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you're a gracious winner, Dave. A gracious winner.
Well, two things I got to say. Hey, Dave, in all honesty, seriousness, you did call it.
You did.
Called this a while back. I mean, you deserve credit for that. And Chris, I can't take it all for the boxing. You said this NBA series is going to be a lot more competitive, whether Durant's in there or not, than most of the media said about that. So both of you guys, kudos there too, seriously.
So if you want to know what's going on in the sports world, worldwide, big world, okay, who do you think you should listen to?
I mean, I'm not giving us a shameless plug, but we kind of hit the money on a couple things, ironically, in the same period of time here.
See, if I could figure out that whole finger thing, you'd see I'm holding YouTube. Okay?
I'm going to go like this.
Ooh. Ooh.
That's right, like this, Dave.
Yeah, there you go.
Two fingers like that.
That's I'm coming at you.
Dave, pick two.
We're really hitting our stride here tonight with our singing and this. We're really hitting
it's an emotional moment. I mean, Fletch is going to come over. I've ordered. I'm going to show you the pennant I've ordered. I did take a picture of it here. This, by the way, did you ever go to Cracker Barrel?
Yes.
See there. It was the first time I ever got that game right.
Oh,
that would be my first. I never get it.
That was this morning. And here is the pennant you'll be witnessing. Champion 6.
Very
that one.
Will be being raised in the room in another week. But something you have a prediction at this point, Mr. Fletcher. What is it?
I think that we are going to continue to be entertained by both of these playoff series, and I see them both going to 7.
Wow.
And I think that it's going to be good, and I'm excited for it.
And who's coming out? Who's coming out with the wins?
Well, I'm still saying Golden State, and my heart is telling me that St. Louis. My head, unfortunately, is telling me possibly Boston. But, you know, the Chara thing last night may change some things.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot more room on the ice with him out there, not being there. So, but you know what, guys? Go ahead.
How long is he out?
There's talk today that he has a broken jaw.
Oh.
Which is why he never came back and played at all in the third period.
So if he's Paul Coffey, he's back for the finals in a couple games.
Yes, he is.
But the question, Fletch, you're right on the money. The series swung because of his injury, and honestly, the loss of Grzelcyk is, again, something that, unless you watch hockey every day, Grzelcyk's a little guy. He's a puck mover. He's a water bug.
Yeah.
And him and Chara both being out now gives Cassidy some real matchup problems because the Blues are fairly big up front, too, on the wing.
They're very big.
So, you know, it's interesting now. That's a major development. I mean, Chara's slow as Dickens anymore when you see him live, but he's so damn big, and he's so mean in front. He's so strong, you know, like Bob O'Brien used to be. That
is, by the way, even with new knees.
I mean, he is. I mean, we used to joke about that, but that kind of strength, and Chara's so big. When he's not in there, you're taking a lot more liberty coming down the slot on the boards.
Yep.
It gives the Blues extra life, and I think that series last night may have switched a little bit. So I don't, you know.
No more Boston championships, please. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. And you want to take another angle at that? Who owns Liverpool?
Oh boy,
the Boston Red Sox.
Do they really? I didn't know that.
They do. LeBron has a small part of it, but John Henry owns.
I forgot. I never knew that. I didn't know that.
He was up on the stage with his young vivacious wife as they were accepting the trophy on Saturday.
But did he go for a tug before the game like Kraft did? That's the question.
We'll find that out in a few months. We'll release the video here when we do.
That's right. Breaking news.
So, Gary, your prediction of the week.
I mean, I think I was going to talk about the hockey. I think I'm going to be a little bit chicken out here. I don't know who's going to win. And this has been one of the most entertaining series in quite a while, actually.
Yep.
including the ones with the Penguins. I mean, because it's had so many shifting tides.
Yep.
I mean, it looked like Boston, we talked about this last week. Boston looked so dominant in game one that I think we were chatting about. I said, I don't know if it's over yet. Blues are big defense. They're rolling. They got some good scoring up front. They win a lot of face-offs. I'm not saying I predicted that either, but then the Blues came back, played a really good game two. Boston looked like they were getting dominated. And Boston the other way, dominates game three, whips them bad, 7-2.
I thought it was over at that point.
Me too. But then now, if Rask doesn't stand on his head, I mean, Rask actually could be the Conn Smythe in my vote, even if they don't win it, which hardly happens anymore. But the fact of the matter is that Rask has played so sensationally after game two against Toronto. That would have been another blowout if it wasn't for him, in my view.
Yeah.
And there's been so many shifting tides in this series, and the way these games have gone, it's now become almost impossible to predict. I think it's at least going 7. And I just get the feeling it's going to be tight down to the bottom, and some fluky thing's going to end in 7. I just don't know who's going to get it. I would like to see the Blues win, though. I've never been a huge Bruin fan to begin with. These guys aren't as hateable as the Bruins of the 70s or even the 80s with O'Reilly and some of those guys. But, they kind of have that little bit of a sneering attitude like we're the Boston Bruins. Well, they've only won one title in a long time.
You know what? I can hate the Bruins any year.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people feel that way, whereas this Blues team, for one reason or another, you just kind of end up liking a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
Whether it's Shen or even Bennington or some of these big defensemen, they just seem like a decent bunch of guys. It's a great story. The league doesn't need a lot of great stories, and it's doing pretty well, but this is a hell of a story. I mean, this has never happened before. As good as the Penguins' run was when Rutherford Morse made those deals for Hagelin and Daly, they weren't dead last in the league. This team 31st in the league on January 1. Think about it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Amazing comeback.
It's amazing. And for a coach that I thought here was completely out of his league. And I don't know what he's done there. And I don't think it's just Berube. I think it's the leadership of the rest of the coaching staff, front office too. But, boy, I tell you, when he was here, he didn't change anything. He made very few adjustments. He was a child when he talked to the press about hits and stuff. Totally different guy there. So it's a really interesting turnaround completely to me. So I think my prediction is it's going 7. If you had to ask me today, I'd probably go with Chris. I'd probably think Boston still wins. I hate to say it. But that Chara thing, if he can't go at all, he may try to play, but if he's really not effective, and Grzelcyk's not coming back, now all of a sudden they're talking about going with 5 defensemen or 7. 7 doesn't work at this point in the season. Guys aren't playing up, and they're dinged up too. 11 forwards, not the way the Blues play. So I think Boston's got some big cards stacked against it now just because of what happened last night. So
I think that's fairly good.
What you got, Big Daddy?
Well, I had such joy early in the week when Neil Huntington said, I'm not going to draft a pitcher. Well, there was joy because they don't know how to develop a pitcher. I mean, since 2009, you can say Garrett Cole, but Garrett Cole had one great year here. It was more a disappointment
I agree.
than anything else. So I'm going to say they haven't properly developed a pitcher since they got here. And I thought, okay, it's a big bat draft. Only a couple pitchers in there who are worth anything. Other than that, take the bat. Well, lo and behold, one of the best pitchers in the draft drops. Quinn Priestner. I don't want to argue with the pick. It was a great pick. I mean, here's a high schooler who has a very nasty 97-mile-an-hour fastball. His two-seamer hits at about 92. And for a high schooler, he has a wicked curve that defies his years. So you rarely get guys that have 3 solid pitches like that coming out of high school. Tremendous upside. They don't know how to develop pitchers. I'm going to predict this is a wasted pick for the Pirates. This is a Mark Merchant, who I know wasn't a pitcher, but the worst pick they've had. But I just either understand you have this fallacy and fix it, or stop drafting pitchers and just sign these guys who are lost, who apparently Ray Searage can fix, who are veterans. Very, very disappointed at that fact. Disappointed for Quinn because, this could be an omen for him.
I just don't like drafting high school pitchers. I never have. I don't mind high school position players. High school pitchers, they lack the maturity. Their bodies aren't ready yet for that. I've never liked it. Never.
No. You get upside, which is what they like, because they could possibly be getting Cy Young material on the cheap end, which is what he's going for. And this kid, but I mean, you rarely see kids out of high school that have a wicked curve developed already. So I like what I read about him. I think he's a tremendous prospect, but they need to figure out a way to develop these guys. They are missing between the AAA and Major League level.
They have a lot of quad A players.
Exactly, and that's on them. You've had so much talent go through here that have done well after they've gotten out of here. That leads you to believe that it's just thoroughly poor job they do on this.
Right.
And I have a feeling this kid is going to go the same way. I mean, how do you think any different? I mean, he probably has Glasnow-like talent with pirate type disciplines. So there you have it. They did an article on Pittsburgh Pirate Prospects, which is a great site.
Mm-hmm.
Basically graded every Neil Huntington draft, and they included players they got rid of too, like Glasnow, like Meadows, claiming that that's part of the draft, whether it was a good draft as the players. And I did it college style with a QPA. I added it all up. He has a 2.43 QPA, which is slightly above a C grade. You can't survive trying to run a team the way they do on the cheap end by having a minor league system that has drafts that are a C+. You can't survive like that.
No.
And
long term. Right.
That's just very troublesome. And I just don't believe this kid is going to be any different. I have no reason to believe they can develop it.
Well, the other part of it, too, I mean, I agree with you 100%. But the other thing that you have to look at evaluating some of these guys is if they're included in trades, if they bring something back. But by and large, Dave, I would say not even a solid C. It's a
yeah. And if Baz happens to be a great pitcher with Tampa, Lord knows. I mean, ESPN has already put it in their top 20 worst trades of all time, which is stupid because
lower,
like a half year into it.
Yeah.
But it could potentially, especially if Baz turns out to be a pretty good starter himself with Tampa, this could turn out to be one of the worst trades of all. Plus, you just emptied out a system you couldn't afford to empty out.
Right.
That being said, I was a fan of the trade last year, so I have no room to criticize it. So.
I mean, they look like they were going to be in the hunt. And unfortunately, this happens way too often. It happens to organizations like the Pirates way too often.
Yeah.
Meadows couldn't stay healthy in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
He couldn't. And Glasnow, like you said, Dave, he looked electric.
Yeah.
But then the next night, he couldn't get through like an inning.
Well, but
that goes back to the development part. Obviously, when he went down there, I can't remember, is it Hickey is the coach down in Tampa? I mean,
he has
Hickey.
Yeah.
He's got the whole staff. I mean, everybody on the staff is effective.
But here's
the opener
that Hickey does particularly well is working with those tall, lanky pitchers.
Yeah, that goes back to Dave's point.
I agree with the problem. It was mechanics, and they didn't know how to fix it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You need to step out of the box at that point and maybe get a guy who works with tall pitchers. I mean, that's a problem anybody could have seen might be special to Glasnow. But I mean, I root for the kid. He's a good kid. I root for Meadows. Lord knows we have definitely got the better of the McCutchen trade. Reynolds looks like just a rock solid guy who, when Dickerson comes back, he's your outfielder. You don't pull Reynolds out. And Crick is becoming a very, very good.
You know what he leads the league in, don't you?
What's that?
He has the lowest exit velocity of any pitcher.
There you go. There you go.
In today's baseball, I guess that is important.
Oh,
obviously not hitting rockets off of them.
Speaking of Kutch, did you guys hear?
Yeah, out for the season.
Out for the season.
And it's funny, when they interviewed him last night, I would watch it this morning. He said, this is nothing. I had a little bit of injury like this in high school. But apparently I guess it's his MCL. He tore it.
He's done.
Yeah, and it's tough. I know my daughter Kara said the same thing this year when she went down. She said, didn't feel like anything that happened the last time. Well, same thing happened. So it's tough for Kutch. Certainly I hope he can make it back. You never know.
Well, it's interesting. With all the money the Phillies spent, stuff's starting to come apart a little. Now we got this guy Herrera beats up his girlfriend in Atlantic City.
Yeah.
There's talk here that they picked up Bruce because they're going to get rid of him as soon as the investigation's over for other reasons too, beyond just that. The pitching staff's starting to come apart a little bit. Nola's not as effective this year. Had some guys on the DL as starters. I think Eflin went on the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I think our guy here, he's a clown with the over analytics stuff, and he's spewing all this kind of stuff, and instead of just letting them go, he said he was going to let them go this year. Now he's not. I mean, It's interesting. It's going to get really interesting here with all these things that are developing, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Could make it an interesting second half.
Yep.
All right, boys. Well, let's have we don't want to walk alone. Let me show that here. It is actually up here. I don't know.
It is in the crest.
It is right here in the crest. You'll never walk alone.
I didn't realize that was from the musical Carousel. It was written in the 1940s. I thought it was the Jerry and the Pacemaker song. Who knew?
No, who knew that all three could be connected with Jerry Lewis? Who knew that?
Yeah.
Indeed. Here's my recommendation, though. We should get together face-to-face for one of these, and we should sing this thing. And we should all get the shirts, and we should sing this thing, because I think we would go viral, as they say.
Piper's Pub, they do that. And we can use this on our phones, by the by.
Okay.
So we will do that next year. We will go down to Piper's Pub on the south side of Pittsburgh for one of these games, and we will sing it with several of our Liverpool friends. Piper's Pub, which was closed down, they had to close it at noon because there were so many people inside for this Liverpool game, which is amazing.
It is amazing. It was, I will say this, as Fletch said, it felt a little bit like hockey to me, Dave. I think I told you this.
Yeah.
As that was a 1-0 lead. 1-0's the best.
Oh yeah.
1-0 lead like that with that big crowd like that and the intensity of it. It was entertaining.
Tottenham was playing great. They were
I thought the first half especially.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. But in the end, champions win. Champions. Okay.
Well, you guys, I need to walk something back since Kyle Crick just gave up some exit velocity, and the Pirates are now down 6-5 after being up 5-3. So,
yeah.
He's been good, though.
Okay. Well, the trade now has sucked.
Send him back.
In retrospect. All right, gentlemen. Well, next week we will have another show coming up.
We're going to have a guest next week, fellas.
Very cool.
We call that a tease in the business.
Very good. All right. Well, we will see you next week.
Good.
And don't ever forget, you'll never walk alone.
Never walk.
Good night, gentlemen.
Good night.